Greetings everyone, and welcome to the IIP Connects web chat on International Youth Day, a global call to action. My name is Daniela Foster, and I am the Director of Public-Private Partnerships in the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs in Washington, D.C. It is my pleasure to introduce the program and today's speaker. Here with me is Special Advisor for Global Youth Issues, Zeenat Rahman. Welcome, Zeenat.
Thank you, Daniela. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today as we celebrate International Youth Day, which is this Sunday.
So in the next hour, we would like to talk with you about why U.S. engagement with youth is important and what opportunities exist for furthering youth engagement. Special Advisor Rahman will be accepting questions from the online audience later in this program. For those of you tuning in online, welcome. We especially welcome all of the members of State Alumni who have the opportunity to submit questions through the State Alumni website. For those of you familiar with the State Alumni website, if you have participated in a U.S. government exchange program in the past, then you are eligible to join this website. Feel free to submit any questions you have for Special Advisor Rahman during the program. I will now turn it over to Zeenat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniela. So as you said, International Youth Day is this Sunday, and the theme for this year is Building a Better World, Partnering with Youth. And the United Nations is using International Youth Day as a global call to action for young women and men to develop and engage in partnerships with and for youth towards building a better world. And this theme resonates very strongly with the reasons why Secretary Clinton created my office. As young people under 30, those of you who are watching, you make up more than half of the world's population. Secretary Clinton knows and believes that you are the change makers in your communities and that finding innovative solutions comes from you. The mission of my office here at the State Department is to serve young people by hearing their voices being heard, to facilitate greater economic, civil, and political opportunities for you, and to protect your security. And so we want to help identify the tools that promote and empower you to be change makers in your communities and beyond. We want to listen to your ideas and your suggestions, and we want to share those with the rest of my colleagues here at the State Department so that our programs can be better informed. We're actively listening to young people all over the world. As Secretary Clinton travels to different countries, she very often does town halls with young people. Our ambassadors and through our embassies and consulates, our ambassadors have set up 40 youth councils throughout different regions around the world where we host listening sessions with young people. And so we want to engage in this dialogue sharing and idea sharing, and then we want to support the ideas that come out of those platforms. And so some of our youth councils have focused on community-based solutions, on local issues, from development projects to e-democracy platforms, from radio stations to building really robust social networks. And so we want to be able to support that work. And finding ways to partner with you and with foreign governments is something that's really important to us. I want to also say that civilian security is an important part of what we do, and protecting young people is an inherent part of that. And so from aiming to prevent gang violence, to protecting victims of human trafficking, to resettling young refugees, the State Department has many programs designed to protect youth so that you can lead more secure and prosperous lives. We also bring young people, including many young people and maybe many of you guys watching, to the United States for training, for academic exchanges, and for professional development. One example of this is a program called Tech Girls, which brings teenage girls from the Middle East and North Africa to the United States, and they have a month of intensive training and educational activities around innovation and strategy. Around innovation and technology. So we know and we believe that young people are the drivers of innovation. Many of the programs led by the alumni of the State Department's alumni network have entered our Innovation Fund competition to demonstrate this. And some of the things that have come out of there have been creating business platforms for underserved youth in Nigeria, developing an online education tool to map educational reform in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then it's a powerful example of exchange alumni, youth partnering with youth around the world to make positive contributions to your communities. So we're doing a whole range of things, but I think the bottom line is that we want to support the work that you do. We know that the idea and the innovation and the talent comes from you, and we want to make sure that we're ready to receive that. So I really look forward to receiving your questions today, and I'm really grateful to have opportunities like this where I can engage and chat with young people directly. Thank you. Thanks, Danielle.
Well, this is great, and we have a truly interactive program for everyone here today. So I think with that, we'll jump right into the questions. We've received many questions on the hot topics of entrepreneurship, innovation, unemployment, and civic participation. With that being said, let's go ahead, get started, and get to the question and answer session. We have an IVLP alum from Cameroon who asks, I have a question concerning youth as agents of change. In a poor democracy context, as is in my country in Cameroon, what concrete strategies can we implement to make youth stand as real agents of change for sustainable and durable democracy?
Thank you, Leonard, for that question. I think it's a really good one to start out with. We've seen the power of young people around the world through the Middle East and other places in the last couple of years, and I think there are some key things to keep in mind, despite regardless of where you live, and that's forming a coalition with your peers. So find other like-minded young people who want to be change makers the way that you do, and you can start with your alumni network, since I see that you're an IVLP, and go there to people who've had transformative experiences. Prioritize what you want to impact. So I know we want to all change the world all at once, but what is the one thing that you see being the greatest social need in your community? Focus on that. And then I would say do the work, set the example, and once you've made that change, amplify it through social media, tell us about it so we can talk about it, talk to your local government officials, your local radio stations, get news on the story that young people are positive agents of change. And I think, even in a poor democracy context, those things will have large ripple effects.
That's great. So we have another question online here. A Young African Leaders Initiative 2012 participant from South Africa asks, is youth entrepreneurship the most viable mechanism to curb the high youth unemployment rate? What do you think, Sina?
I think that unemployment rates are high everywhere around the world, and there's no easy answer to how you solve that, but there are many ways to solve that. And so I do definitely think youth entrepreneurship is one of those things. It's one of the vehicles that we can use to address this. And again, it goes back to what I said, that ideas and innovation come from young people, and so it's really, how do we take those ideas and creativity and apply them in a productive way? And I think, in some places we see that there's a skills mismatch, that the ideas or the education that young people are getting don't match the jobs that are available. Mm-hmm. And so it's figuring out how do you make the need and the demand meet one another. It's, facilitating a business environment that's supportive of young entrepreneurs, both on the mentorship side, but also in terms of funding and capital and things like that. And I think those are some of the things that we think about at State, that my office has been thinking about, that a lot of people, a lot of different offices at State think about, and that's how do you create that supportive environment for young people to flourish, for their ideas to gain traction, so that we can change the staggering ratios around youth unemployment. And I think mentorship is one. I think engaging the private sector is another. And then, looking at country leadership and taking this case to country leadership to own as well. So yeah.
No, those are all great points on a very important topic. And as I mentioned before, we've received a number of questions around entrepreneurship. So thank you, everyone, for that. We have an IVLP from Indonesia who states, I'm a vocational high school teacher in Indonesia. The workplace of tomorrow will look very different from the present. How can I, as a teacher, better prepare my students for the uncertain and ever-changing workplace and practices of the future? Thank you so much for your shared insights. Ms. Rahman?
Yes,
thoughts
so
on that?
So just first of all, thank you for your commitment to teaching young people and for being resourceful about what their needs will be, when they come out of school. And I think, one of the key things to think about is beyond the technical skills that they're getting in school, what else do they need to succeed in the changing marketplace? And I think, young people are digital natives and they understand technology a lot better than I do, probably. And so it's making sure that they're equipped with using technology as a positive lever of change. But it's also, what are the soft skills, those intangible things that nobody necessarily teaches you about how to be a professional in the workplace and how to adapt to a changing workplace, how to take the skills that you have and apply them to the to the needs that are out there. I think there are some easy things to do, maybe not easy, but there's some things that you can think about doing in your community, and that's engaging the private sector and getting people who have made it and been successful from that community to come in and talk to students about what the needs are and have a real conversation about how they got where they got, and identifying those things and then training students kind of in those skills so that they're ready when they graduate.
Yeah, all great points. And we now have a caller live on the line. We have Shamir on the phone. Shamir is president of the Bangladesh Youth Environmental Initiative and a 2010 alumnus of the UGrad program. Shamir, thank you for calling in from Bangladesh, and congratulations.
Hello, Mrs. Rahman and everyone. Yes, it's great honor to be here in conversation with you all. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Shamir. I want to congratulate you on winning the Alumni Innovation Fund in 2011 and on all the different projects that came about from that. Could you tell us about some of these projects and how youth have been involved in their implementation?
Can I first share my experiences that I had in the exchange in the USA? Like when I was a student in the USA, exchange student, I was involved with community service. I volunteered for the Obama campaign. And most importantly, I was very much involved with environmental activism in the USA. So when I came back in 2009 in Bangladesh, I founded this non-profit organization in Bangladesh Youth Environmental Initiative to create the next generation of environmental leaders in Bangladesh. In 2011, we have been awarded with Alumni Engagement Innovation Fund grant, and this grant has supported 5 great projects. And let me share that one of the projects has constructed a community-based pure water drinking system, which will provide pure water to nearly 6,000 people of Bangladesh. And then another project will provide light to 300 families living in the slums of Dhaka. And other projects are to set up rainwater harvesting system for poor people, to produce organic fertilizer in the school campus, and raise awareness on health issues among slum people in Bangladesh. So these are some of the examples of the projects that we have been carrying out under Alumni Engagement Innovation Fund grant.
Wow, Shamir, you have been very, very busy. This is wonderful. These are absolutely excellent. I think you are just a wonderful example. We always tell kind of alumni who've been on our programs that you are the leaders and you are sort of the agents of change, and you're a great example of that, Shamir. Thank you so much for calling in.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Great. So we have another question. A President's Forum for Young African Leaders participant from Uganda asks, is it possible to create a platform through which young people's business innovative ideas are supported and invested in by U.S.-based investors? Kind of a key topic. We hear a lot of questions about this.
Yeah. And I think, I had a chance a couple of months ago to meet some of the participants in the President's Forum that came through this year, and it's a group that's exceptional in so many different categories. So I'm not surprised that they've kind of come back and are wondering, what they have these ideas. How do you create that platform? How do you plug in? I want to mention one program that we have at the State Department. It's called Lions Africa, and I'm going to read it so that I don't get it right, so I don't get it wrong. But it promotes innovation and entrepreneurship in Africa, and it stands for Liberalizing Innovation Opportunity Nations. And so it's focused on capitalizing on the growth that Africa's seen in the private sector and creating new opportunities in sub-Saharan Africa. And so I would encourage you to go there, and it's an attempt to support startups and entrepreneurs and provide that kind of business environment that I talked about earlier, where they can have the environment to see their ideas flourish. And so I would encourage you to check out Lions Africa. I know that this fall we're going to do something called the Demo, which will be a global platform to connect African startups to the global ecosystem and to attract funding and things to the great ideas that are coming out of that country.
That's wonderful, and I've heard about that program. It's an excellent example of a public-private partnership. So that's great. We have a participant from Indonesia's English language study program who states, "Hi, Ms. Rahman. I am interested in political issues and its impact on social welfare. What's your opinion about the current leadership of youth in the world? Do you see that wider opportunities exist in the future for the youth to lead the world?" It's a big question.
Yeah, it is a big question. I would say, of course, and not just in the future, but now, and I think that we heard from Shamir in Bangladesh, but everywhere you look, kind of in every sector, you see young people as agents of change and as key agents of change. And so I would just look towards those examples in politics, in sports, in civil society, and you see young people taking the lead. We see that in our own country, but we see it around the world as we visit our peers around the world as well.
I'm also just thinking about the Olympics.
Yeah, me too.
And how many young, just rock star athletes, rock star athletes that are out there making it happen. And so there are some great examples of youth leadership.
And when you say that, it makes me think of the idea of having aspirational leaders or heroes in your own community. So it doesn't have to be the rock stars but there in every community there are young people who are inspirations to all of us. And so I think identifying those people and showing other young people that they can do it too. I mean, you can't underestimate that. It sounds like a small thing, but I actually think seeing someone who looks like you, who's lived where you've lived, get where they are is very, very powerful.
Yeah, and that peer-to-peer mentorship is just so important. Yeah. And we hear about that all the time. We have an IVLP alumnus from Uganda who has a question. What policy advice do you give African governments and donor agencies to stimulate opportunities for youth employment? Again, a lot of questions on employment.
Yeah, I mean, young people are 2.5 times, more likely to be unemployed than their adult counterparts. So this is an issue that we all feel, but especially young people feel. I'm not surprised that a lot of our questions are focused on that. I would just start by saying part of the reason why I exist and my office exists is because the Secretary wanted to elevate youth as a policy focus. So when we speak to other governments, whether African governments or others, we emphasize that we can't deny the statistics that are in front of us about the world's population, about what this world is going to look like in 10 and 20 years. And so we really need to think about how we are restructuring our policies and frameworks to make them responsible to young people now. And so, I think creating an office and elevating the focus is an important part of starting the process of thinking about youth as, a sector and how we address the challenges that they uniquely face. We've said it before, but there's a great skills mismatch. And so I think just as in our country here in the United States, government doesn't have all the solutions and we can't do everything. It's the same around the world. And so we really need to get our other actors around the table. We need private sector at the table. And we need to ask them, what are the jobs? What are the growth markets that you see where young people can come in? What are the skills that they should be getting in education and training right now so that they are fit for you when they graduate? So it's engaging the private sector, and we're doing that as well. And I know you're kind of specialized in that. It's also getting the private sector to support internships and support young people getting that
Absolutely.
learning, those soft skills that I talked about that are, you can't teach that anywhere. You learn it on the job. Just as you and I learned, we're still learning how to be here at the State Department. I think that's equally important around the world. And then I think, once you identify those skills that are needed, there's many different ways to enter the market. And so those are some of the things that we think about ourselves, that we're thinking about how do we change the Department of State to make it more receptive to young people, but that's also when we speak to foreign governments, it's the same message.
Yeah, thank you for that. Very important points. We have a SUSY alumnus from Tunisia who asks, are there new incentives to encourage young people in my country to be more productive and helpful in society? A great question, again, touches on a lot of the points that you've mentioned before.
Well, I would say that, Tunisia has set the example that has been seen around the world. So I think the greatest incentive is that the world is watching. And I do think that we have a moment with young, and this is what is so exciting to me as I do this work, is we have a moment where, everybody recognizes the power of young people. Mm-hmm. And I think it's our job as, those who want to help young people and as young people as agents of change to show what that means. And I think don't get overwhelmed by that because it's a big responsibility. I think, focus on the small ways that you are changing and then add up to big ways. And we saw that in Tunisia where it started with one person, right? And you can say that started the groundswell across the Middle East, but it's, focus on the work that you're doing and then tell the story of the work that you're doing. So tell us at the Department of State, tell your peers and find those people that are going to be supportive of lifting you up and supporting you and your cohort.
That kind of actually reminds me of Secretary Clinton quote. She's been famously quoted as saying, anyone can be a diplomat, all you have to do is press send. And I think that highlights the point that there are so many options and avenues out there, particularly for youth these days. So we have another question coming in. 1985 Fulbright alumnus from the United States says, hello, Ms. Rahman.
Hello.
I'm currently a Peace Corps volunteer serving in Jordan and working on youth-related issues. Do you have any thoughts on how to promote collaboration between youth groups in the U.S. and in other countries? And what kinds of issues would both groups benefit from discussing?
I think that young people around the world, I think something that is unique about young people around the world right now is that there are so many similarities, right, in cultural references, in the way that they use technology. And so I think identifying those problem areas, we do have some issues that are global issues. And so it's thinking about what our local issues are and how they connect. But I just think we have so much in common. I'm really grateful for that question because it's something that I'm thinking about as well, and would put it out to everybody watching and listening that if you know of good ideas, of ways to connect, the energy that exists amongst American young people to connect to their, peers overseas and vice versa, I would love to hear it. And, we just started our Facebook page. It's Global Youth @State. And so that's a place to kind of start the conversation, to find where those connections can come out, on issues that people care about. And as we're seeing in our conversation, there are certain themes that will continue to arise over and over, in the conversations that we have with people around the world. And, one of the things that I've realized through talking and speaking with many of our youth council members is it's really powerful to be in Mexico and know that someone in Nepal is facing the same issues that you are in terms of trying to impact change in their communities, or that, somebody in New Zealand is connected now, to somebody in Riga. And so those, again, helping tell that story of those connections, and I think State Department can play a facilitative role. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of platforms both for our alumni. We have many Facebook pages. Mine is just a place to start to engage in the conversation and find your peers kind of that are in different places around the world, and then the issues that you want to focus on will kind of come out, but I'd love to hear from you on our Facebook page about the responses to that question as well.
So there we have it, immediate a call to action to also send in your questions and start the dialogue on your Facebook page. I think that's a great suggestion. We have a SUSY alumnus from Rwanda who asks, what is the youth contribution in the reconstruction of post-conflict societies?
Yeah, it's a really important question, and it's something that, conflict resolution is something that we deal with in every country, whether they're post-conflict or, or not. But not just because of the numbers, but because of who they are. Young people are critical to building civil society. So that's, we start from that. And, I think, tactically speaking, I think it's really important to have a knowledge base of the other, so finding out things about, knowing facts about people who are different from you, and finding those things out from those people. So building those relationships is the starting point. And so I think having that knowledge base and then talking about it is critical. And then beyond that, talking about how you can work together. There's a great program that's run out of our DRL Bureau called 2012 Hours Against Hate. And it's young people and others, but all around the world, who are committing hours of their time to social good projects, because they want to overcome this narrative that exists that people can't get along, that people from different ethnic, religious, whatever backgrounds can't get along with one another. So you need to know something about people who are different from you. You need to build those relationships and those networks, and then you need to focus on, in your communities, what are the needs, and just go at it together. And then you'll have relationships with people, and there's nothing more powerful than that. You have policymakers, you have a lot of other people in the mix, but there's nothing more powerful than that web of interconnectivity to build a strong civil society and prevent future conflicts from happening.
That people-to-people connection, absolutely so important. We have an alumnus from Cairo, Egypt, who asks, with the current political changes in the Arab world, are there activities planned for 2013 to engage Muslim youth from around the world, and in particular from the MENA region, and a wider intercultural dialogue? I think this is a great question, and I know we have a number of projects.
Yes, and I'll ask you to actually chime in, and I'll mention a few. But I'd say that we want to connect with all youth around the world, and we want to build capacity to make you be able to make change in your community. So another project I'll mention, which is not MENA focused but is important, is called Generation Change, and a colleague of mine here runs that program, and it's showing, I think he focuses on Somali bloggers, to teach them how to blog and teach them how to effectively connect to one another and get their messages out there. So we want to focus kind of on those, needs, and in terms of in the MENA region, being able to communicate. Definitely, we want to communicate with young people all over the world, but particularly in the MENA region. We have a lot of exchanges that our Middle East Partnership Initiative office runs, to whether they're English language learning programs or other programs that do focus on that region, and you can go to MEPI's page and look at those things, but I would say that there are unique local problems that people have, but there are also other capacity building things that the State Department can offer that apply whether you're in Brazil or in Tunisia. I'd ask you to also add to that, Danielle.
Well, I would say that building communities of practice are so important, and that is one thing that the State Department does well. We have programs and partnerships, actually, like Partners for a New Beginning, which started out particularly focused on the MENA region and looking at how you do things like develop scholarships. So I know there have been partnerships with the private sector, specifically in Egypt, actually, around scholarships for students and things like that. So education is a key component, training is a key component, like we've mentioned before, and then even just in the Secretary's dialogue with strategic dialogue with civil society, youth is a hot topic. It's absolutely not just an issue, but it's a priority, and I think we see that just by virtue of the fact that we have your position. That sort of states how we're trying to engage.
And the strategic dialogue exists because the Secretary, wants to engage in productive dialogue with people around the world who aren't just policymakers. And that's why there's strategic dialogues exist, with religious people, with, private sector, with youth leaders. And basically it's, the idea at the end of that is that we have a series of recommendations about how we can be better and do better and build those relationships better. And so, I would encourage you to kind of channel into that. And again, the fact that I exist means that the secretary wants to hear from you, and she wants to hear those ideas that you have about how we can increase conversations between, Muslim West dialogue or whatever that is, that we can take up to her if we know what those solutions-based ideas are.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a USAID Scholarships for Education and Economic Development alumnus from Honduras who states, "I live in Honduras and I'm committed to a recycling educational program. Does the government create grant programs to help youth develop community-based projects?"
Yes. Meaning we have different, places where we offer funding. One is this Alumni Innovation Fund, but I don't know if that's just limited to state alumni. And then, I think it's important to be in conversation with our embassies to see where there are possible resources or pools for funding. I mean, it's never going to just be, the United States, but that there would be other, and I hear this a lot actually in Central America and in the Caribbean, that recycling is a passion for young people. And so it's also going to be something that, policymakers notice, that, that we need to do something about our islands and the places where we live to make them more sustainable for our future. And so I would say that there probably is interest in your program, and you should maybe connect with us either through my Facebook page or through the embassy, and talk about ways that we can help support.
And I also think sharing best practices are incredibly helpful, because it really
Yeah.
helps to get the dialogue going. And I would also encourage alumni and just all youth to think about the private sector, the NGO communities, and the different things that are going on around the world, because there are so many opportunities for grants. And I know even just on the state alumni site, there are tons of opportunities for grants. So be sure, everyone out there watching, to take advantage of that. We have an alumnus from the National Security Language Initiative for Youth who states, "Young people everywhere are having a hard time finding employment." He asks, "What do you think we can do to make ourselves more marketable?" Another great employment question.
Yeah. I mean, I can just repeat what I said before, which is that I can't underestimate the importance of having those soft skills, of knowing, beyond being exceptional at what you studied in school, technically, but also knowing how to be on time for an interview, how to dress, how you conduct an interview, how you conduct yourself in the workplace, and find people in the private sector and ask them to mentor you. Find somebody that you admire or that you want to be like in 5 years, and ask them if they will help you, or at least sit down with you for a coffee and give you their advice on where you've gotten. I mean, that's how I've gotten where I am. It's listening to those who are, who I look up to, but it's also looking at the peers around me that are doing exceptional things, and asking them to support me. And again, the peer group part is really, really important. And then it's, for your area where you live, it's looking at what are the skills that are needed. And I think that takes maybe some research, but what are those markets that offer you a low barrier to entry? Whether maybe it's not, I don't know, maybe it's Photoshop now, or maybe Photoshop's moved on and it's something else, but what are those things where you can begin to start to enter the workforce? And it might not be that big job, that you see your dad or whoever had, but it might be a way to start, and then you become more fluent, and then you develop ideas about what you want to do next. So don't be discouraged. I mean, find somebody who's been there and done that, and ask them for advice. Always ask for advice. And then be smart about what you're studying and where you're going with the time you spend learning and being educated and learning those skills. Be smart about what those skills are.
That's great. We have a Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange alumnus from Germany who states, "Right now, I'm thinking a lot about my future career possibilities. What career path would you suggest? Where would I have the possibility to bring some change and have an impact in the world?" Again, a lot of great career questions.
Yeah.
We are noticing a theme. We hear you on this.
Yes. And, you know, that's a question that I think people ask themselves their whole life. I ask myself that question all the time. What can I be doing that will make me have the biggest impact on the things that I care about? And I care about, you know, a peaceful world where everybody has opportunity, where young people's voices are heard, where, you know, it doesn't matter where you grew up, but that you can apply all of your, you know, Secretary Clinton says, all of your God-given talent, because we all have it, you know. And so I think there isn't one answer to that question. I mean, it's I would say identify what you're passionate about, you know, and start there. And then look at, you know, do I want to, if this is the problem I want to solve, or this is the idea that I'm passionate about, do I want to go to the government and help be a policymaker to change policies? Do I want to be in civil society and lead an NGO so that I can see the change on the ground? You know, do I want to be in academia so I can teach other people? I mean, it's looking at those different things, and there isn't one answer to that. I mean, you might do all of those things in the course of your career, but really I think focus on what is that thing that makes you like not be able to sleep at night because you're so excited, and then go after it.
That's great advice. We have a caller on the line. Nadia Pak is also joining us by phone today. Nadia is a 2009 Flex alumni for Kyrgyzstan. Nadia, you and Flex alumni in Kyrgyzstan did something remarkable. In the aftermath of violent ethnic conflicts that occurred in June 2010, alumni coalesced to bring about peace and reconciliation between Kyrgyz and Uzbeks. Tell us more about that. We want to know, what kinds of projects did you implement? How did you collaborate with alumni? Tell us about that, Nadia.
Hello, thank you so much. Yes, I participated in the Flex program in the year of 2009 and 2010. And in June of 2009, there were violent ethnic conflicts in Kyrgyzstan between Kyrgyz and Uzbek nationals. And hundreds of people, unfortunately, were injured and killed. Both sides engaged in acts of hate towards each other simply because of their nationality. And unfortunately, many young people also engaged in these atrocities. And U.S. State Department alumni began work to bring peace and create projects that would heal the results of hate acts. Flex alumni and active Kyrgyz young people came together to form the Unity Fund. We started Unity Fund with the goal of reuniting Kyrgyz and Uzbek youth. We believe that involving young people in various activities would show them that we are all equal and together. It was funded by fundraisings, private donors, and grants offered by State Department, and since inception of the fund, we have had over 120 projects.
Wow, and, that's fascinating. 120 projects. You have also been busy, Nadia.
Thank you so much. We have some, I would like to share with some examples, like Flex alumni fundraised money through posting an online portal on the American Council's website, open for everyone around the world to donate money to the Children's Hospital in our city, in the south of the country. And this is the city where all bloody events took place. Also, alumni organized a trip for children from Osh to the parks and movies in the capital. And we also invited a lot of volunteers from the outside of alumni community. And this was the moment when we saw the race of the desire of youth involvement into the social life of their country. This is how we understood the importance of involving them into our projects, because it was a great opportunity for us to share what we have learned in the United States about diversity and tolerance. And right now, once the situation in the South is no longer in severe need, Unity Fund operates as a place for everyone who can't stay apart and wants to make changes in the lives of other people. The main projects organized by Unity Fund so far are anti-cancer movement, restarted by Flex alumni. We organize various of charity concerts, fundraisings. Most successful ones are English language talking clubs, where we gather a lot of young people. We speak English. We talk about different things that they are interested in. And this is a great chance for us to really share what we have learned in being a Flex or a U.S. State Department exchange participants. We also.
I was just going to say, that's wonderful, Nadia. These are all, I mean, so many excellent examples.
Thank you so much. We try to keep up good work, and we really appreciate that we happen to be the alumni, and we had the chance to participate in U.S. State Department exchange programs, because this really changes the lives of all of us, provides great opportunities for us to see things wider and open our eyes wider, because the world, we explore the whole new world while being here. And thank you so much.
No, that's wonderful, Nadia. I think, you know, we have so many questions about how you start something, how you build these networks, what the opportunities are. How did you get all of this started? This is wonderful.
This happened, actually, I was in the United States when first hit of the violent happened in Kyrgyzstan. It was in May and April. And I came, in the morning, I came to my class, and my teacher told me that there's something on the media about Kyrgyzstan. So I went online and I saw that all these things from the outside of my country, and I looked at it and I thought that this is really horrible, and I could see the problem better. I mean, there was something that really hit my mind, because I saw my peers in my American high school doing charity, or like there was an earthquake earlier in Haiti that year, which took lives of so many people, and I saw how many projects my peers would organize to help raise money, to help collect donations and send it over to Haiti. And I immediately thought of what I would do if something similar happened in my country. So once I've seen this, I thought that I need to go home and start something that would contribute, that would really make change in the lives of people back home. Because I was given this opportunity to live in another country, see things and experience the culture. And I wanted to bring this little piece back with me and make it bigger, so others would also have a little chance to experience what I have had. So I
Daniela, can I ask you, how did you, so you had this great experience of being in the United States and kind of seeing this, the spirit of volunteerism and things like that. How did you come back and convince your peers to get involved? Because they didn't have the same experience as you, but so how did you get people interested to start the project with you?
That was a little bit difficult, first of all, but we found a group of interested people, interested in it people, and we gathered together and we thought that let's start something. There were 3 of us, 2 Flex alumni, and we had one girl from China who sat at home, and she was like, I need to go outside and do something because something is going on in my country. She is ethnically Kyrgyz, but she lived all her life in China, and she was born and raised there. So we would meet at American Council's office one day and just start a little fundraising in one of the superstores. And while being there, we thought that we should start an NGO and start make it bigger. And it was so random, I would say, and it just came out of our feelings. So we started to going to different universities, high schools. We have sponsored by U.S. embassies. We have little American corners, which is a great chance for people to go and learn English. We went there. We would start talking club there, and would say that, why don't you guys join this project? Let's go and visit elderly house. Let's go to the superstore and ask people to donate something to send over to Osh. And I think also the events that happened, they have not only the negative side, but the positive side. When the tragedy happened, a lot of young people, they started thinking about their country, about the future of their country, and this was a race of NGOs funded or organized by young people. And these NGOs would operate, and they would help the development of our society. We have a lot of NGOs that promote media, that win grants from other countries, from mostly from the United States, and they would start and build, help the peace come back to our country. So,
well, Nadia,
I think
this is
that was
just great.
Zinat
and I were over here. We're both nodding our head because I think we appreciate your entrepreneurial spirit, and I think that's so key. I mean, we have had a lot of questions about entrepreneurship, and I think all of this ties in well. Even when you want to do something in your community, you have to be entrepreneurial, and you give a great example of that.
I mean, yes, so inspiring, and I hope that Marie from Rwanda is listening, who asked the question about, post-conflict societies and how you can make change. But I think, everything you said was amazing, and I wish that you were sitting here with us right now, but I'm really happy to have you on the phone. But the two key things being that you believed you could do it because of your experience that you had being here in the United States, but that you got your fellow peers to believe that they could do it by doing it before maybe they even believed that this was a good idea, but just in small ways starting to go to an old person's home or be in the supermarket, as you said, and that from there blossomed this amazing NGO culture of change makers. But it's because young people believe that they could change their societies positively.
Absolutely.
And I think it's one of the core components of the conversation we're having today, that you need to believe that you can make change where you are, and you need to just start small. Thank you, Nadia.
Well, and Nadia, I mean, one other interesting thing as we wrap up, something interesting I learned about you, Nadia. Nadia, you were hosted in the U.S. by a Muslim family. Being
That's right.
from a predominantly Muslim country, what was that like for you?
I learned so much about Islam. I had no idea what Islam really is, living in predominantly Muslim countries, because I was born in Uzbekistan and I moved to Kyrgyzstan in 2004. And I come to U.S. and I would stay with Nigerian family who practiced Islam 3 times more than I would see Muslim people in my country. And we had a whole melting pot in our house in Missouri, because we hosted another girl from Germany. And I experienced so many cultures, because I would go to my high school and experience American culture, and we had so many exchange students there. And I would come home, and that would be absolutely different culture. Even though we lived in America, I would feel that I am somewhere in Africa, because the atmosphere in our house would be Nigerian. And this was that was so inspiring for me, because I learned a lot about diversity, about tolerance. That's why I think this really helped me to go back and see the conflict between Uzbek and Kyrgyz, and better understand it from my standpoint, because I know what it is to be immersed into absolutely different culture, and how to tolerate, how to understand, because we're not better, not worse, but just different.
That's right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you
Nadia.
so much, Nadia. We're thrilled that you could be with us today, and we thank you for sharing all of that insight. It's a great example of how to make change in your community.
Also, on behalf of our alumni, I would like to thank you for this great opportunity as well. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. Have a great day. Well, we're back again to more questions from the audience. So here we go. We have a Fulbright scholar in Mexico who asks, how can we help young people to get away from drugs?
Yeah. Again, a big question without necessarily easy answers. But, I think that it is something that we think about through the work that we do in our different bureaus here at the Department of State. And I think it's providing alternative opportunities for people to stay away from gangs and drugs. And it's not easy. It's easy to say, it's not easy to do, but having a community-wide effort where there's a support mechanism from peers, from teachers, from parents, from the local police that incentivizes doing other things and not falling down that path. I mean, that's what I can offer. I mean, I think that you know your communities better, and so, but it really is looking at everybody and how they're supporting a culture of not joining gangs and not doing drugs. Because once that's a normative part of the culture to not do it, then it's easier to come up with other things to do besides that.
Absolutely. And we have another question on the line here. A Fulbright alumna from Columbia states, I work with a youth faith-based organization in Columbia. How can faith-based youth organizations be better involved in civil society? I know this is near and dear to your heart. You have a lot of experience in this area,
I worked at an
Zena.
interfaith organization for 5 years, and really believe in the power of people from different backgrounds, whether it's faith-based or not, coming together toward and working on the common good. And so I would say in our country, faith-based organizations provide just a great amount of social service. So when you're hungry or you're poor or you need something, you go to a mosque or a church. Right now it's the month of Ramadan, and in every mosque almost in America there's meals and there's charity activities being done by Muslims for all Americans that are in need. And so I would say that focus on those needs that people have and help them, and don't just do it with only people of faith. I mean, find other people who are different faith backgrounds than you, who are part of secular civil societies that also want to feed the homeless or clean up their parks, or all of those things that faith-based organizations are so good at doing. And then I would suggest, again, when I was saying, you should know something about people who are different from you, talk about what that inspiration is as to why you do that. Why do you feel compelled, whether it's your faith background or your life experience or your moral, code, or any number of things that motivate you to help those that are less fortunate than you. And you'll learn something about people. You'll learn something about the people who are doing the work with you side by side. So focus on a project and then partner with people who are not like you, and take the community, you take your faith-based community, the young people with you, and then talk about it after. It's that easy.
It's great. We have a Hubert Humphrey fellow from India who states, I'm working with the children and youth from underprivileged urban slums in India. It is extremely challenging to raise the children's agenda to mainstream attention and create legitimate space for youth to express their opinions. How can local and international communities help raise awareness about these children's conditions and give them a voice?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's, again, these are big questions, right? And there aren't easy answers to them. But I think the fact that we're sitting here at the Department of State and having this conversation with young people around the world is because we want to hear and we want to help elevate those issues. And so I think it's in every community there are going to be other people, whether from NGOs or from local government, who are with you and who understand. Find those people. Don't go straight to the people that you need to convince of this being an issue. Find the people who are with you already, and then help to tell the story, through international media, and the story of the change that you're doing, because you're doing something really important in your community, and that is probably mirrored through many young people listening in communities around the world. And that amplification, there's a multiplier effect of having many people working on a problem together. It makes it a bigger thing in and of itself to show all of these people care about this issue, and they're bringing their voice and their good work to this issue. And so it needs to be paid attention to.
Absolutely. Getting it to a tipping point, as we might say.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we only have time for one more question. This has gone by so fast. We've received so many well thought out questions, and I wish we had more time to respond to all of them. But we can continue the conversation on Youth at State on Facebook. Feel free to direct your questions there. And IVLP from Nepal asks, what is the main message you want to spread to the youth of the world in the eve of International Youth Day 2012?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I'll just kind of conclude on a lot of things that I've heard and then talk about what we can do together and how we can continue the conversation. And so I think, number one, be hopeful. I mean, it's really easy to be discouraged, I think, in terms of the conditions around the world, in terms of how people look at young people sometimes as the problem and not the solution. Don't lose your hope. That's something as young people that you have. And once you lose that, you lose your kind of ability to want to do change. Know that there are people listening. I mean, there's people like the President of the United States, the Secretary of State, who are deeply committed to young people, and who've shown through programs like the Young African Leaders Forum, through my position here at State, that we care about young people, we're committed, and we want to work with you to come up with solutions. Don't be passive, don't be passive people in your own life. And so I know a lot of us are on social media and the internet as much as we can be. Don't just consume that. Be active change agents. So use the internet for finding where those peer-to-peer networks are, for learning something. There's so many online education tools now that you can improve your circumstance, even if you feel like around you it's not the best. But use that connectivity that you have, that you're so good at, not just to consume and be passive, but to put it back out there and be aggressive about taking kind of a seat in where your own life goes. And through doing that, you're gonna bring your communities, bring your countries up with you. We know that you're more than half the world's population. We know that we see you as genuine partners, and partnership to us means that we want this to be a two-way conversation. So we want to hear from you. We want to highlight the thousands of Nadias and Shamirs in the world to connect to their peers who are thinking I want to make change, I just don't know how to start. So, and I think that's our job, is to connect you to one another. We want to hear about the projects that you're doing and the questions that you care. What are you committed to in your community? And again, our Facebook page is Global Youth @State. So come there and let us know. And then, just stay connected to us. I tweet, and so my Twitter feed is Zinat. There's our Facebook page. And just know that you have a listening ear, both from alumni exchanges, from us, from many different places at the State Department, and we're committed to helping you any way that we can. So thank you.
And you were tweeting before we even got started today, so she really is on there quite a bit. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us. A recording of this program will be available online within about 5 days, and we look forward to sharing that with you. Again, we want to continue the conversation. Join us on Facebook, Global Youth @State. Feel free to direct your additional questions there.
Thanks, everyone.